Oda has finally dropped Zebec in the last 2 chapters. We now know what he looks like. We have a rough idea of how he fights, how strong he is, so we can more or less scale him. Still, an incredible number of questions have popped up around him. What's the deal with his sword? Is he still alive after that statement from Emu that he'll return? One of the coolest and most insane characters in all of One Piece? Today we'll answer these questions, so leave a thumbs up. Of course, the elephant in the room was the wanted poster that many talked about. As in the stream, the pose Zebec takes in that wanted poster is exactly the same as Buggy's. Guys, how crazy is that? So many wanted posters in the One Piece world, and we've never seen one where someone holds their hand like that and sticks out their tongue. And then it's both Buggy and Zebec. You know, the theory that Buggy might also be a son of Zebec is out there. A lot of people find it silly. I did too at first. But with this wanted poster, I have to say honestly, it could be one of those things where Buggy surprises the whole world, you know? And I also think maybe it's not widely known right now in the world. Only a few chosen ones know, like Rayleigh, or maybe Scopogaban. And what would that change in the story? Honestly, not much. It would just be another funny Buggy moment. Okay, he's a son too. I don't know. What do you think about that? Let me know in the comments. I always find your take interesting. Now let's talk about the sword. The sword of Zebec. First off, his swordsmanship is just insane, totally brute force. He just smashes down, and the impact is as massive as a hammer blow or a cannon blast. How he even developed such an attack style, and whether his attacks have names, is also really interesting. We've seen Whitebeard, for example. His attacks weren't given names. That was clearly intentional. Blackbeard's attacks do have names. With Zebec, we saw that impact, it was awesome. But it wasn't that overwhelming, because it was against that kid Loki. He didn't even need a named ultimate attack to land a final blow. So what we saw was just a regular strike for now. And that clash against Harald, the King of the Giants, during the reverie on the Red Line, it didn't even have an official attack name either, but the force of it felt like a divine departure, something on par with one of Roger's attacks. And we know that Zebec was ultimately defeated by Garp and Roger working together. They had to team up to take him down. But of course that raises the question, during God Valley, how involved were the other Rocks pirates? Were Whitebeard, Kaido and Big Mom also fighting alongside Zebec? Because if all those monsters were fighting too, then obviously Roger and Garp would have been outmatched. But how insane would it be if the rest of them were busy fighting elsewhere? After all, there were others present like Rayleigh, Scopogaban, and even the Holy Knights. Garling Figarland was there too, and he probably fought against Whitebeard. So imagine if Zebec actually faced Roger and Garp alone. How insane is that? Because we know how strong Garp is, what we've seen from him is absolutely mind-blowing. And Roger, of course, is Roger. But if Zebec could hold his own against both of them together in a tag team battle, then he might genuinely be the most powerful person ever. But then again, someone like Harald clashed with him on equal terms. That clash was so insane, it knocked out everyone within a 5-kilometer radius. The clash between Harald and Zebec was absolutely monstrous. Which leads to another big question: how did Loki manage to defeat his own father, who apparently had some kind of demon powers granted by Imu-sama, and Loki still beat him? So just how strong is Loki? That's a power level we honestly can't even define yet. Just from instinct, I'd say Loki is around Luffy's level, maybe even above. Of course, many people always see Luffy in Gear 5 as this all-powerful god, someone who can do anything, and who embodies complete freedom. That perspective is totally fine. I get that too, but honestly, I think Luffy needs to take a hit now and then. He can't always one-shot everyone, can't always succeed at everything. And if someone shows up who's actually stronger than him, I'd find that really cool. But you know how it is with power scaling. It's nonsense anyway. Everything is situational. You have to look at how the moment plays out, what the scene gives us, and what the character does with it. Now, about Zebec's sword, whether the sword he used back then is the same one we now see stuck in the Room of Flowers near Imu-sama. We saw Zebec was present in that room, but back then, that sword wasn't stuck there yet. It looked like he still had it with him. So at the time we saw, the sword hadn't yet ended up in Imu's possession. I'm just talking the way people think, guys. Honestly, when it comes to all these sword theories in One Piece, all I'll say is, just wait. I know it sounds cheap, but trust me, just wait. I mean, take Griffin Shanks' sword. That thing has been drawn differently probably over 10 times. It even seems to have grown over the years. It's suddenly double the size now. And that brings us to another thing: sword size. Some believe that swords adjust to their wielder. For example, Enma, the sword Odin used. Odin was massive, way bigger than Zoro. So in his hands, Enma looked like a normal-sized katana. But if Zoro had held that sword back when Odin wielded it, it would have been as tall as Zoro himself. You get what I'm saying? Now Zoro wields Enma, And it looks like a regular sword, the same size as his others. So yeah, it seems swords in One Piece can adapt in size. But the appearance also changes. Griffin's look has changed multiple times. Same goes for Roger's sword, which is named Ace. Where is that sword today? Some people think that's the sword stuck in the Room of Flowers too. Because think about it. God Valley happened. Roger and Garp teamed up against Rock's Zebec. We know Zebec was defeated. Whether he survived, whether he escaped somehow alive, or whether his soul ended up in Blackbeard's body or something, that's all speculation for now. But the fact is, he lost. The treasures, the riches from God Valley were taken by the Roger pirates. That's also where the treasure chest with Shanks was found, and maybe even another chest with Buggy in it. That's a theory, of course, but Buggy is the same age as Shanks. And if he's really supposed to be the son of Zebec, then it would be wild if he was brought along too. Maybe Buggy's mother was on the Rocks pirate ship back then, carrying baby Buggy. Who knows? A lot of people think Roger and Garp defeated Zebec at God Valley, and that's when Roger obtained the sword Ace. And after Roger's death, that sword came into the hands of the world government. That might be the same sword we now see stuck in the Room of Flowers. The design is very similar with that curved guard around the hilt. But keep in mind, the swords look different depending on where you see them. In the manga, they often appear different from the anime. You can't always rely on anime screenshots. Even at God Valley, Roger jumps in wielding that Ace sword we're familiar with. But in the manga, it looks like he had a completely different sword, as if, at that point in time, he hadn't yet obtained Ace. Which adds weight to the theory that he got it from Rock's Zebec. But what does that actually mean? Why is that interesting? Honestly, it's not. The real question is why Imu-sama has that sword now. Does the sword even hold any special meaning? And where is Rock's Zebec today? He made a bold declaration to Imu saying, "I will return, right here." That's a heavy statement from the ultimate antagonist of the old era. And then what, he just dies at God Valley a few years later, and that's it? His supposed son, Blackbeard, simply carries on his will and eventually enters the Room of Flowers? That doesn't feel right. Not for someone like Zebec. When he said he'd return, it sounded literal, as in, he himself would be back with full consciousness. And I'm convinced that will happen. The only questions are, how, in what form, and using which methods or tools? Did he somehow transfer his soul into Blackbeard's body? Sure, that might sound like some extreme tinfoil theory. But don't forget, the very first time Blackbeard was introduced back on Jaya, both Zoro and Luffy referred to him in the plural. Nami was confused like, huh? It's just one guy? Why are you saying they? And it was never explained why. Haki wasn't even a concept back then. Sensing presence, or spiritual awareness, wasn't part of the story yet. But even then, Zoro and Luffy sensed multiple entities inside Blackbeard. Later Marco at Marineford said, his body is not normal. Why? He's the only known character who can't sleep. And he's also the only known person who can consume 2 devil fruits. It's always been said that a devil fruit integrates into a person's soul. If someone eats another one, the conflicting souls tear the body apart. But Blackbeard somehow bypasses that. Why? But if Blackbeard is still carrying Zebec's soul within him, then of course there's room for a second devil fruit. That might even explain how he can wield 2 fruits in the first place. Why doesn't he sleep at night? Maybe when one personality sleeps, the other one, Zebec, wakes up. Maybe we've already seen Zebec appear at certain moments when he took control of Blackbeard. In some scenes, maybe it wasn't even Blackbeard speaking or acting. It was Zebec's personality coming through. And the fact that he was able to give Shanks those 3 scars over his eye is suspicious too. Because at that time, Blackbeard didn't have the darkness fruit. He had nothing. No devil fruit powers at all. Just some big burly guy that Whitebeard had taken in. Sure, he had some kind of claw weapon, but power-wise, especially when it comes to Haki, he shouldn't have been superior to Shanks at all. That just doesn't add up. And yet Shanks said he didn't show any mercy. We know Blackbeard has some hidden ability, and I believe that ability is this: he can summon Zebec. Zebec can emerge and take over his body temporarily. I'm not saying it's exactly like Sukuna from Jujutsu Kaisen, where the other personality completely takes over, but maybe something similar. I know it doesn't sound very One Piece-like. It sounds crazy, but to me, it's the missing puzzle piece that could explain everything strange about Blackbeard. So many lingering questions. His devil fruit abilities, his inability to sleep, why Zoro and Luffy spoke of him in the plural, the unnatural nature of his body. All of that could be explained if Zebec somehow managed to embed his soul into Blackbeard's body after the God Valley incident. Maybe in his last moments, Zebec used all his strength to transfer his essence into a new host. Now yes, we know Big Mom's soul fruit was a thing, she was also in Zebec's crew. But that fruit alone can't do that. It doesn't allow the full consciousness or soul of a person to enter another body in this kind of way. It was said that Big Mom's soul fruit can't bring souls back into human bodies or reanimate the dead. But what we're talking about here is a bit different, isn't it? This would be Zebec's soul transferring into a living being, not a corpse. So the question is that even possible? Maybe it is, but only because Blackbeard might be from a special race, possibly the Moon People. That could be the only reason something like this works. Or maybe it has to do with the operation of Eternal Youth, the secret ultimate ability of the Ope no Mi, Law's Fruit. That operation has been mentioned multiple times throughout the story, always shrouded in mystery. Wouldn't it be insane if the strongest pirate from the old era used it? Because remember, Zebec was in front of Islamu. He knew he couldn't do anything yet. He said, "I'll return," as if to say, "I came too early. There's nothing I can do right now." And maybe, because of that, he started searching for ways to bridge the time gap, to survive into the future. Roger simply accepted his fate. He said, "I came too early," stepped down, accepted his incurable disease, and disappeared from the stage. But maybe Zebec didn't accept fate so easily. Maybe he said, "Fine, my son, 40 years from now will be my second chance. And maybe that's when the time will be right." I just really hope Zebec returns. I think he's such an amazing character. How cool would it be if Blackbeard's hair suddenly changed color, like got those signature stripes or patterns when Zebec takes over? And now, Mary Joyce is on fire. That's why Imu-sama rushed off to Elbaf to resolve the situation there quickly. Because Pangaea Castle might be under siege. By whom? Many people think it's the revolutionaries. But after this intense flashback involving Zebec, and seeing that he's the only one who ever made it into the Room of Flowers and openly declared he'd return, I'm starting to think it's not the revolutionaries. Because let's be real, we're supposed to be in an Elbaf flashback, right? This whole thing with Loki and Harald should be the focus. But suddenly we get this massive Zebec flashback that barely has anything to do with them. That has to mean something big is coming. So, if Mary Joyce is burning right now in the present, then narratively it would only make sense if this is the moment where Blackbeard and his crew are making their move. Maybe he's sneaking into the Room of Flowers right now, and the meeting with Imusama is about to happen. That might sound insane to some people, but I can really imagine it happening. The Blackbeard pirates have always had some kind of plan involving the world government, some big move they were preparing. And maybe this is the move. On Elbaf, time seems to pass more slowly, while outside it runs faster. That hasn't been fully confirmed yet, but if it's true, then it would explain why the Blackbeard pirates are already this far ahead, already in action at Mary Joyce. So I really ask myself, if Zebec is now back in Blackbeard's body and he's actually facing Emu once again just like he said he would, what's the plan? What is the master plan now that he's returned? He can't just show up, make another dramatic statement and disappear again. No, this time, he has to actually execute a plan. He has to take the next step. So I'm really curious what that plan could be, if this theory is true at all. Or maybe Zebec really did die back then, and all of this is just his will living on inside Blackbeard, and I'm just here talking nonsense and overhyping everything. Well, we'll see. Drop your wild theories in the comments, people. I read them all. With that said, goodbye and see you next time.